So I'm Alexa Kane. I'm a financial planner at Pro Planning, and I'm joined by Lucy Valandra, who's another planner that joined us in the spring of this year. So we're both really excited to talk about college and planning and saving for that specific goal. We're both mothers of boys, and ours are more in the daycare and diaper stage, but we definitely have a lot of conversations around the topic of college planning. And we have a lot of things we're going to go over. So talking about the cost, the different stages of, you have your babies, you have your elementary kids, the the middle school, high school ages, and then when your kids are grown and in college as well. Then we'll talk about 529 plans and also some alternatives of 529s, and then balancing the competing goals of saving for college for your kids and also saving for your retirement and what that looks like for you as well. And then some trends in the college landscape, and then a couple tips about communicating with your kids about what college looks like. And then at the end, we'll share a couple tools and take any questions that come up over the webinar. So the first slide is it can look a little bit depressing, but this just shows the cost of college. It was updated in November of 2023, looks at Michigan and out-of-state options, private four-year schools, and just really that sticker price of what does college actually cost today. I attended a webinar for advisors about college planning, and one positive note that kind of came out of that was these sticker prices are sort of irrelevant because according to Sally Mae, scholarships and need-based grants pay for about 31% of college, and then the sticker price of private schools is actually discounted about 56% on average. So just a positive piece on the the sadness of these prices, but another reminder to not only look at these sticker prices, but it's really important to pick your schools and then go through the process of what packages are available to your student and what is that true cost for that college. And then our next slide just kind of talks about the state of student loans, and over 1.7 trillion total student debt right now. It was interesting to me that the average student loan debt and the average loan amount taken by parents was a pretty equal mix there. So 37,000 for students, about 36 for the parents. And that does get an average monthly payment of about $400 a month on the back end. So student loans are a huge topic, and they're in the news all the time. And a lot of people are actually in a place where paying down their own student loans and getting to a point of saving or planning for loans for the children. So those are conversations we can work through with prioritizing those. And it is a whole separate knowledge base. And so we have consultants, and Melissa's had a podcast guest who is his entire job is looking at options for student loan payment. So that's a good resource, especially as a lot of us have conflicting goals and opportunities on where we allocate funds. And then this one just shows, hey, with that 37,000, here's a couple things that you could also pay for. It is a large undertaking, but there is still a lot of value in going to college and pursuing that education. So I had UTSA.edu estimated that college graduates earn an average of $650,000 more over their lifetime than counterparts with just a high school education. So depending on the degree and what you do afterwards, there is still a lot of opportunity for that degree to provide value for you. And then Lucy's going to talk about saving for those babies, middle kids, and going into high school age.
Yeah, so starting when your babies are young really does pay off. If you can start when they're still in diapers, you're going to pat yourself on the back for the magic of compound interest in the future. But it's not too late to start at any age. Compound interest and that return on the investments really can help. And starting small, you know, $50 a month is not a bad place to start. So this is a great chart that highlights kind of the difference of what happens if you start saving right when your baby's born versus waiting until they're kind of that kindergarten age, or all the way down when they're 12. And there is a big difference between starting when they're born and starting at age 6. This particularly is looking at if you contribute $100 a month, $250 a month, or $500 a month. But also be realistic, right? Alexa and I both have kids in daycare. Daycare is incredibly expensive. And think about what you were paying for daycare. If they're going to public school, you now have all those savings, maybe put some of that and amp up the 529 contributions during those school age years where your daycare expenses are hopefully a little bit less. And some other great tidbits for when they're young, continuing having automatic contributions, whether those be monthly, bi-weekly, setting it up so you kind of just set it and forget it, making sure that those contributions are also automatically investing. That will depend state by state on what type of 529 that you have. But make sure that that money isn't just sitting there as cash, it's actually being invested and working for you. Birthday checks and money from friends and family make great additional contributions to those accounts. And consider increasing the contribution amount as you're able to, like when they're out of daycare, or setting it up similar to how you might increase your 401k by 1 or 2% annually. Think about doing the same thing for these types of accounts. And when your kids are in high school, not only are you starting to think about college tours and all the fun stuff that comes with it, but this is a great slide kind of highlighting exactly kind of month by month through junior and senior year, what you need to be thinking about between researching, sitting for the SATs and ACTs. I know that those are kind of coming back now post-COVID, that those are necessary to take for some schools. AP exams, college essays, the actual application process, filing for FAFSA, we really highly recommend, and Alexa will highlight this more, you know, no matter what your family's income level looks like, filing for FAFSA. And it can be a lengthy process, but it is worth it. And then if your children are currently in college, some things to think about, or approaching college. Community college is a great resource, not only as a replacement for your traditional 4-year institution, but knocking out some of those general education requirements that are going to be necessary at any school that you go to. Just make sure that the credits easily transfer, and also using that for summer school too, and highlighting the your time home during the summer. Trade schools are also, and trade jobs are becoming, much more popular than they were in the past. And kids right out of trade school can make a lot of money, and you can use 529s to pay for trade school and community college. Don't forget to apply for scholarships annually. We think of it a lot as kids are going into their freshman year, but maybe kind of forget about it for those other 3 or 4 years of undergrad. So making sure that you're finding scholarship opportunities, and thinking about them in places you might not necessarily normally think. Maybe your religious organization or your community might have some opportunities available. And this one probably comes as no surprise, but textbooks are incredibly expensive. So think about buying them used or renting them, and think about an on-campus job during your time at school.
I was just wondering if they even use textbooks anymore, or if they just download a PDF and
Exactly. I think you can do both.
I'm like, I don't know. So I'm going to talk about 529s because they're one of the most popular savings vehicles for college costs. So they are wonderful triple tax advantaged accounts if you live in, one of the 30 or so states that offer either a deduction or a tax credit for the 529 savings. Michigan, which is where we are, and most of you probably are as well, they do offer a tax deduction up to $10,000 if you're married a year. And just one thing to note, because we've run into it a couple times, they do net out if you're adding and taking money out in the same year. So just being mindful of that. If you're staggering kids, some in college while still saving, that is something to be mindful of on that. But there is the tax advantage on the state level when you put money in. The money inside of the 529 accounts grows tax deferred, like Lucy mentioned. So that is just another benefit of saving early and often, is the number of years that money is able to compound in that tax deferred bucket. And then another similarity between 529s and kind of the 401k type of accounts is they have age-based options for the investment. So I have a 2-year-old and his 529 is in an account for 0 to 2-year-olds, and it is very aggressive right now because he has 16, 18 years until he is going to college and spending that. And as he gets closer to using the funds, it automatically gets more conservative as it's preparing for him to spend that money. So very similar to kind of those target date funds people use in 401ks. And they also do have other options of, if your child isn't going to college right away, you can pick a specific mix, or they have a couple of different options for the investments if you want to go outside of the kind of set it and forget it model. But it is very nice to for busy parents to not have to worry about, oh, do I need to change it because we're going to be using it next year? So that's a benefit that I really enjoy. And then the third tax advantage is the tax-free withdrawals for qualified expenses. So if it is for tuition, room and board, books, there's lots of qualifying higher education expenses that you're able to take that money out without any tax implications. And in a couple slides, there's a nice graphic that will go over that a little more. And then this slide just goes back to that compounding Lucy talked about of, if the money is in there for 6 years, it's growing without tax implications. So the power of getting that money to work, even if it's $50 a month, it is all gonna help with that tax deferred wrapper there. And one reason we really like the 529 plans is the flexibility and the control that they offer. So you're able to change the beneficiaries if you want, or if one of your children decides not to go to school, you can move that account to the next child, or if there's a niece or nephew, they're able to change the beneficiary very easily. These can be used across the country, and I think right now there's over 400 schools outside of the US that would qualify as institutions as well. And then, like Lucy mentioned, trade schools, the certified apprenticeship programs, they are also eligible for the 529 plans. If you live off campus, you can do, the school will have a cost equivalent, and you're able to take that amount from the 529 as well. So it's pretty open there. You can also take up to $10,000 to pay back student loans, and $10,000 a year for K through 12 private school tuition if your family goes that route. So there's lots of lots of places within the education that it can be used for. And then unlike some other accounts, when the beneficiary turns 18, you as the account owner would still maintain control of that account to do the distributions. It's not going right to them for the ownership there. So they are very flexible, and just that control aspect of an 18-year-old is technically an adult, but for most purposes, we wouldn't want them having access to large sums of money there. This just shows a couple of the things I already talked about. So the tuition and associated fees, room and board, those computers they need if they're in specialized programs, books and supplies can also be used there. And then there are also, if there are special needs, there are services that are also covered and able to be used with the 529 if necessary. And then just another positive of the 529s is gifting. So if you're in an estate tax issue, there's a lot of opportunities to shift funds from your estate into the next generation. So just being mindful of opportunities that may present themselves, because there are higher limits on the 529s for that purpose. And then I'm sure a lot of people have seen in the in the news or just in the writing about being able to take unused 529 money and moving that into a Roth IRA. So if you're in the lucky or spot of having extra 529 money at the end, you are now able to move from the 529 to a Roth IRA, $35,000 total. You're still capped at the annual max of that, but it does give an option to kind of move those funds over time into a Roth IRA, which is a really great investment for those students who are now working their, first or their early career jobs, to kind of give them a boost or a head start there. So there are, you do have to have earned income. It has to be open for 15 years. There's some rules on the logistics of operating this. And then one other, just a note, is that a lot of people are worried about if there is extra money and if there's not another beneficiary to pass it on to. The tax or the penalty and the tax on that is on the earnings portion. So if there is extra at the end, there's a small amount that is subject to that 10% penalty and a tax. But when you think about how long the account was opened and those earnings that have been building up over the years, it's not a huge concern. Like, we are mindful of it, but it should not deter the savings aspect. So that's a little recap on the 529, and then Lucy's going to talk about the alternative options to 529s.
Yeah, there are some great alternatives to 529s. Like Alexa highlighted, we really love the 529 plan, but it doesn't have to be black and white. You can have other options available to use to help pay for education expenses. And one is what's called a custodial account, also known as a UGMA or UTMA. This is a taxable investment account, like a brokerage that you may have for yourself. The benefit is the flexibility that comes with this. The drawback is that you are giving this account to your child at their age of majority. For some states, that's 18. For some, you can make it 21. But then that money is theirs and they can use it for anything that they want, whether that be education related or not. So it allows for flexibility because you can invest in whatever you want, low investment expenses potentially. But they do take control at that age of majority, which can be a scary thing depending on your kid. And then this is looking at your taxable investment account. So again, these are going to have the flexibility. You can use the money for whatever you want, whenever you want, but it's not a tax advantaged account. So you're missing out on some of those tax growth opportunities. And FAFSA does consider it income, which can really impact financial aid. Both if it's under your name or if it's under the student's name with those taxable investment accounts. We think that these are great solutions for paying for anything that's non-eligible under the 529 plan. So this could be room and board over the summer if they're staying on campus and doing classes over the summer. Things like that is a great place to highlight withdrawals from this account. And there are plenty of other places to get sources for college funding too. Roth IRAs are an awesome tool. You are able to take out a certain amount to pay for education related expenses without any sort of penalty. We really do like these accounts though to be geared towards your retirement savings. So we try to encourage people to hold off on using any sort of withdrawal from these accounts for anything non-retirement related, but there is the ability to use it tax-free if needed. Same with life insurance. There are some types of life insurance plans that allow for you to withdraw from the cash value to pay for higher education. Home equity loans, these tend to have a little bit higher interest rates than your student loans might, but there is the opportunity to use those and borrow against the equity in your home to pay for college. As well as private loans. This could be borrowing from a bank, credit union, or other lending opportunity outside of your typical subsidized student loans. Again, these interest rates might be a little bit higher, and it's going to be unique to each situation, but there are lots of opportunities to save for college outside of your 529. We just really love them because they have so many pros. So how on earth do you balance saving for college with saving for retirement and just living your life day to day? Again, highlighting, we really think that you should prioritize saving for your retirement. There's no plan B. We jokingly say, just like an airline stewardess, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first before assisting others. While we all know in a situation like that, we of course want to help out our kids and would do anything for them. You need to really make sure that you are saving for your retirement first and foremost, because there aren't retirement loans or things like that that you can really do where there are lots of opportunities to pay for college outside of withdrawing from your retirement account. So we'll talk about that in a second. So this is a great graph and just shows how families pay for college, right? And there's no typical family, everyone's unique, but it really highlights how there's such a blend between students borrowing, parents borrowing, paying for it out of your income and cash flow, students' income and savings, relatives and friends helping out, as well as scholarships and grants are great opportunities. This is a little bit of a depressing slide, and it's highlighting how much should you invest based on your child's age today and looking at public college. This is looking at in-state numbers as well as private college. And it's a lot. They're suggesting if you have a baby born right now, and you want 100% fund their college and they're going to go in state, that you should be saving around $650 a month. I have 2 newborns. That's not happening. That's not realistic. And I'm a financial advisor, right? So just do the best you can, but really make sure that you're prioritizing your retirement first and foremost. And like Alexa talked about at the beginning, those kind of sticker prices for tuition aren't always what you end up paying. In reality, it ends up being significantly less. But do know that inflation for tuition is much higher on average than inflation for everything else. It's averaging about 5% versus the average of 3%. So as much as you can save and start saving early, please do, and you'll pat yourself on the back later in life when they're going to school.
And I will just add that we typically don't have the goal to have 100% fully funded, because there is, like the last slide showed, that gray part of coming from the parent income and savings. And, you know, depending where your kid ends up going to school and how much fruit they like to eat, like you may have excess cash from when they're off of your, you know, your day-to-day budget, and have cash to deploy to part of that tuition bill in that year. So really, you know, focusing on doing what you can, but knowing that, hey, we don't, just like with our retirement software, we don't need to get 100%. Like, we're gonna do do our best, and we'll get it sorted out. You know, there's many opportunities to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Aiming for about a third is kind of a great rule of thumb that hopefully somehow the student is coming up with about a third, whether that be through student loans or gifts. About a third is coming from the parents, and then hopefully a third or so is coming from a mixture of scholarships and grants. So, you know, saving 100% for college is probably doable for only a select few of us. So we're going to look now at current trends in education financing. So what we highlighted earlier, the rising cost of tuition is just astronomical. So again, do the best that you can. This is looking at the projected cost of a 4-year traditional institution based on your kid's current age. It is a little bit of a scare tactic, hopefully just to highlight the power of starting to save now. And this is a great slide showing on average how much students actually get for scholarships and grants. Very few free rides to college, 0.03%. So you are likely to get some sort of grant or scholarships, but it's not going to fully fund your student's ride through college. So anticipate it helping, but not fully paying for college. And our good old federal student loans, this is the route most people go to help pay for college. It kind of breaks down into the 4 main groups of your direct subsidized loan, your direct unsubsidized loan. These 2 are going to be in your students' names, and then direct plus for parents, and direct plus for graduate students. This is looking at interest rates on average between 2023 and 2024. So those are going to vary. And also shows us the annual loan limit. It is capped for those federal programs.
Perfect. And then I will talk about communicating with your kids about college and starting those conversations. It is important to set expectations and be open with your kids as far as, you know, what you're saving, what you're planning to provide for them in this space. And I think the earlier you have those discussions, the easier it is to, you know, plan for where they are going to go. We see all sorts of things. I'm going to pay for 4 years. I'm going to save as much as I can, and that's what they have. We're going to do X amount a year. There's so many ways, and a lot of it kind of comes from our personal experience, how, you know, how it went for us. So even before talking with the kids, you know, talk with your partner about your story with, I mean, with college, with student loans. It's lots and lots of layers of how that worked. And there's a lot of, you know, great stories of how people worked through college, or how grandma and grandpa really helped with the books, or just different things that are unique to your family, and getting the child on an age appropriate level as far as, you know, what you're providing. And then if there are expectations of grades or class loads or doing some sort of work during school, just getting up to speed before you start filling out those applications is good to have an idea of where things sit. And then discussing loans, what the options are, how they work, okay, the $400 payment, if you're looking at a job that's gonna pay 60,000, here's what that looks like. Just getting them kind of into the mindset of how the loans work, because unless they have a car loan already, there's not a lot of experience in that world. And I know when I was in college, my roommates and friends were like, I have all of this extra money that I can, you know, buy an extra speaker and do these things. And then, they are still probably paying off that speaker from college. And sharing finances, to the degree you're comfortable of, I think it is important to let them know, kind of where things stand, and also, what their liability or responsibility is in that conversation. And also encouraging options and flexibility. Lucy talked about taking those AP classes. Community college is a great option for those, base classes, build up the coursework, and really explaining the differences of, hey, if you get credits here, that is saving over on the other side, and just how we make these choices and the decisions and the dollar amounts associated with the various options, because there are so many choices available, the dual enrollments. Depending where you live, there's different options. I know in South Dakota, we had a similar program that you could take classes at the college and really build up those credits before going on to a different university. And then keeping communication open. It's a long college experience. Then if you add in grad school, other schooling as well, just communicate and keep things open. Another thing to keep in mind is that student loans are not the end of the world. And even if you are having your kids get loans, it does not, stop you from in the future saying, okay, now that we're through this and we're on the other side, you can decide to help, with monthly payments, or maybe do a lump sum on the back end. You don't have to take on the whole burden in the moment and, take everything at that time. You can assist over time, and it gives them some buy-in into the the education and the process as well, and experience with having a loan and how does it work. And just maintaining flexibility is really key. And those 18 to 24-year-old brains are growing and developing. So just being ready for all of that. And then Lucy pulled some really great visuals from Napkin Finance. They're easy to read and understand, and might be helpful to kind of kickstart conversations with the kids. Here's one about the FAFSA. For this year, the application actually opens December 1st. So they've made quite a few adjustments to the FAFSA in the last 2 years. So one good thing is it's down from 108 questions to 36 is now the the amount of questions on there, and that depends on how you answer some of them. And then you can also link up your tax return so that information flows directly. So there's some changes that have been going on there. Last year it had some bugs to work out, so I think they've pushed the open date to December 1st. But really, we would encourage, even if you think your income is too high, still go through the process. It should be much less painful than before. I can't guarantee that, but it is a good exercise to go through. And then just two more from Napkin Finance about student loans. What are the different types, and some information there. And then financial aid, what is a grant? What's a scholarship? What do they mean, and how do they work? So there's a lot of great resources there. And then, like I mentioned, Melissa's done podcast episodes about the student loans. And then Ann Garcia, she works a lot in the paying for college space. She has a great book as well. And she's been on the podcast and done some webinars with us before. And we have some slides. We'll share the presentation and a couple links, but if there are questions, if you are a current client, our Right Capital software has a lot of great toggles we can do. If your kid's looking at X school and we have saved Y, we can look at kind of where we're sitting there. And then on the, taxes are a big thing for everything. So we can also look in our holistic plan tax software of, are we optimizing taxes? If they're in school, should we be taking some money from cash to pay if we're eligible for those tax credits in a given year? So there's lots to consider at the various stages of we're saving, we're paying, and then we're paying back on there. So we're always here if there's questions, and if we don't have the answer, we have a lot of great resources out there that can assist with those questions. And then, like I said, the podcast has a lot of great episodes there. And then if there are any questions, Lucy, can you see the question box?
I can, yes.
Are there any questions?
We don't have any questions at the moment, but we can wait a second and see if anyone pops up. But feel free to reach out to us and we'll share our contact information on the next screen for any follow-up. And if you're a current client. Oh, we just had one pop up. Great. What happens if someone gets a scholarship and we've saved in a 529? What a great question.
I love it. I was gonna mention it and then I just forgot. That is really great because it's great that they got a scholarship. And when you get in that situation, you are able to take the scholarship equivalent amount and it avoids the penalty. So you're able to take it out without a penalty, and it is still it is subject to taxes, but it's at the beneficiary's tax rate. So I think we ran into it for a couple years, and it's currently, if they're a student, they're usually not working or having much income. So it was a very low tax bill on that, and we were able to pull those funds out of the 529 and cover, paying for the car, those other expenses that the scholarship doesn't cover. So it's some good flexibility there.
Yeah, great. We've got another one that just popped up that I'm happy to answer. If one kid gets a scholarship and there's money in the 529, could those funds go to another kid or someone else? Great question. Yes, you can easily change the beneficiary on the 529 to a different child, to a different person. So there's lots of flexibility within the 529 plan of, currently saving as well as in the future, which is one of the many reasons why we love them, is the flexibility that you get with those plans and all the tax savings.
Good. Yeah, it's fun, and there are people that open the 529 in their name before the child is born, and then they change the beneficiary to the child when they have their social security number. So the flexibility is really great to get going on that tax deferred savings and move it as you need to. Well, if we have no other questions, just a note, I know we work with a lot of University of Michigan employees, so we are having a benefits roadmap. I know the open enrollment coming up, so Melissa's going to have a webinar September 25th on that. So if you are an employee or if you have friends that are, it's going to have tons and tons of information about open enrollment. And that's on our website as well. And then I have our disclosures for everyone. And then if you have questions, you can reach out to us. There's the phone number. Our email addresses are alexa@proplan.com and lucy@proplan.com. Or you can find us on the website as well. So we're glad you could join us to talk about 529s and college savings. And we hopefully will see you soon.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks.